This is Verity Seeker. My name is Mark Powles. I'm your host, and I'm out here in my front yard right across the northeast corner of downtown Garnett. My studio is right over there. It is my opinion, based on experience, that voters need to start changing the way they vote. If you have an incumbent, someone who's served in government office, and they brag about all their achievements, yet nothing has changed, I would suggest you stay away from those candidates. If you've had a special interest person from the private sector who has lobbied candidates or has financed certain candidates and is just not happy that they were served the way they paid for and they're now running, you need to really question that as well. Basically follow the money. Do not vote for the person with the most money, because that money had to come from somewhere, and it requires a lot of money to run to be Kansas governor. So do the opposite. Take a look at the people who aren't recognized. I am always going to favor an underdog that gets their money from individuals and stays away from special interest money and lobby money or alien money, which would be money that comes from another state in our union. Be smart. The GOP and really the Democrat Party nationally and in our states, they've been picking our candidates, and too bad for the independents. Too bad for the libertarians. Too bad for those people that have no home, no faction that they want to belong to, because they want loyalty to the party, not to a written constitution, which is the way it's supposed to be. When you vote, maybe it's time to make a change. Focus on the candidates who don't get the recognition, who aren't allowed on a stage, because they don't have enough money or they won't sign a document of loyalty to a certain faction. I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm just saying it's time to change the way we think and the way we vote. The person with the most money and the most signage and the most media out there is probably the person you want to stay away from. Money shouldn't get people into office. The character of the candidate and whether or not they're going to obey that vow, that oath to our Kansas Constitution is what matters. That's what you need to think about. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Stacy Rogers for Kansas governor. Thank you.
Somebody called me up, and I'm not going to mention any names, and she was supporting a certain man and wanted to promote, I guess she is working for this certain candidate, and basically was almost in debate with me over the gender issue.
Oh, interesting.
And the comment is they can't win. Or she can't win. And the reason is that we have a woman governor right now, and that hasn't worked out too well, and I don't think it's a gender issue. I think it's more just ideology.
Yeah.
So what do you say to a person like that? I want to know. I told you I was going to get you started.
Yeah, so it's only been brought up like once or twice, actually.
With you personally?
With me personally, comments on Facebook, and it was, that's a very. I want to be as kind as possible.
No, don't.
It's.
I get it. Go ahead.
It's not it's not about what gender I am, whether I'm a male or female. It's whether I can do the job.
Yeah.
But historically in this state, and I've said this many times, every time we've put a male Republican against a female Democrat, we have lost in this state. And we have 20 years of history to show that. Now, that's not The only time we've had a male Republican in the last 20 years, he ran against another male. And I'm not saying that that's a reason to vote or not vote for someone, but you have to pay attention to to that simple fact. It's a fact. It's not a, oh, well, women do better in the state. It's just simply a fact that that's what we have done. And why we've done it can be debated all day long, but the fact still remains that's what's happened.
Yeah.
So to say that I can't win because I'm a female is probably the most absurd thing I've ever heard, because the fact is history in this state shows otherwise.
Yeah. Well, it really made me mad
Yeah.
because, I don't know, it's exactly what you said. It's the person, not the gender. And it's like the race card again, too.
Yeah.
They always want to use that when they want to push their ideology, or they want to push their candidate. And the person that spoke to me, I do understand where she's coming from, but that's the emotional person that she is. And there's a lot of emotional voters out there that are swayed by money. And most of that money comes from special interests and lobbyists.
Yep.
And, I'm a fan of Thomas Massey, and I'm not happy about what happened in that state. It's not my state, but I do see what's happening. And I think the same thing happens in Kansas. These people that get elected are sponsored and supported by people that we don't want representing us.
That's correct.
They serve the special interests and the lobbyists, not the people. Now, I've noticed you go around and you speak to anybody, including me.
Yeah.
And I'm just a nobody here in Garnett, Kansas. But you come here and you actually talk to people and you answer the questions, and you're a normal person. And my understanding is that you are not supported by mega corporations or special interests.
Yeah,
and
I've
lobbyists.
turned all that down. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it, person by person.
Yeah, it has never been. So there's certain things throughout this campaign that I can point to. There's very specific reasons why I did them. Number one, because I've said from the beginning, I won't be swayed by, I don't have any PAC money, and I have no special interest money that has been donated to my campaign. I've refused all of that. But additionally, I filed earlier than everyone else to take myself out of those conversations on purpose, and to make sure that the people of the state knew that they would see me on that ballot. They knew I was for real. They knew I wasn't going to try to work some last minute deal out for something and jump off the ballot, or jump off, and say, oh, not running now, guys, because that's never been what this is about. It's always been about serving the people of the state. And so those conversations, those things don't matter to me. And, we see right now, I don't know when this is going to get posted, but, we're several days away from June 1st, the filing date. And most of the candidates we think may file haven't. And, one can only deduce that there are some conversations happening about how things are going to look and who's actually going to file. And
no doubt.
Yeah.
They were the ones selecting these people to run against the other party faction, and that's why they lose.
Right.
Now, you experienced some of this party behind the scenes, what are the game, whatever they play. And, the fact that you have to come up with so much money just to even get on a stage, that doesn't sound very democratic to me, by the way. What's your opinion of that?
I think that if they were truly wanting to make sure it was a fair election, which that's, something the Republican Party says all the time, we got to have fair elections. We want to make sure that people have their choice, but yet they block certain candidates from being heard. And it really has actually fueled the campaign. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that one, because what has occurred is that when you on purpose alienate one person, that makes people look at that person and say, why are they doing that? Why would they be alienating just one person? And, that's continued with just a few people. Most of the counties, most of the areas of the state are playing fair. They want to make sure that the voters get to know who all their choices are. And I'm very thankful for that, because that's very encouraging. There's just a few that are, trying to limit who hears from me. And that I can only take as a compliment. Because if I wasn't making a difference, if I was as irrelevant as they try to make me out to be, they would invite me to absolutely everything, because I wouldn't matter. I wouldn't affect anything. But the fact is, they know how popular I've become in this state, how many people know my name. I've spent all day walking into places where people already knew who I was before I ever walked in that door. And that is happening all over the state. All day yesterday, the same thing happened in Dickinson County. Everywhere I went, people already knew that I was going to be there. They already knew who I was. They've already been following me. I get over 800,000 views a month to just my one political page. That's not counting. That's just on Facebook. That's not counting TikTok. That's not counting all the other social media platforms that I'm on. And so to say that I don't have name recognition, we should ignore her, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, that's a blatant lie meant to distract people, to steer them towards another candidate. Mm-hmm. So, and it's unfortunate, because it does start to take choices away from people. And 100% my campaign is only about the people of this state. Somebody said to me a while back that you're just doing this for an ego boost. And I about fell out of my chair, because it was the furthest thing from the truth. There are plenty of better ways to get an ego boost.
Why would anybody see that in the first place?
I don't know. There are lots of better ways for somebody to stroke my ego and tell me what a great, person I am. It's just an absurd process. They have no idea how difficult this is.
Yeah.
To put yourself out there and to open yourself up for scrutiny, and to have people that say mean things and they've never met you in your life, and say just absolutely terrible things about you, and you just keep going forward. So that's not why I'm doing this. It would be far easier, and I can think of a million other ways, including my own family, that would appreciate telling me how great I am, So this is not the arena to do that, but it is the arena to serve. And when I look at the issues of this state and where we're at today, as a lifetime, I multi-generational Kansan, it actually disgusts me, the state that we're in right now, and the things that are happening, and because people are hurting. And I've traveled this state more than any other candidate. No other candidate is going county to county, town to town. Some will say, oh, I'm going to be in every county. Great. But they're not going town to town, and they're not walking into places that I'm walking into to find people to talk to. And when I walk in places, I don't know whether I'm talking to a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, an Independent, and it doesn't matter, because they're Kansans. And I am a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I'm a Christ-following woman, and it doesn't matter, because they're people. They're people, and as governor, I will represent all people in this state, all residents in this state, and they deserve to have their voice heard. It doesn't mean that I will agree with them. And I've been very clear. I talked with a Democrat today, and she was saying, I'll vote for you. And I said, that's great. But we didn't agree on everything. And I said, we're probably not going to agree on everything. And you're going to have to be okay with that to vote for me. And that comes down to that personal choice. If somebody wants to vote for me and they're not in the Republican Party, that's something they have to reconcile with themselves. It doesn't change who I am and what my morals and ethics are. So
yeah, actually, a true candidate will be appreciated or possibly, they would vote for a true candidate on all. Well, I mean, we're talking extreme here, but the general public in the Republican Party, Libertarian, Constitutional Party, or Libertarian, or even Democrat, there are good people in every one of those factions. It's just that they have no place to go.
Yep.
And it's because we have people serving in that government right now, and actually all governments right now, that they have a job description, and it's a really easy document for them to understand and read. But I don't even think they read it. If they read it, they don't even follow it. And I'm not even going to say what it is, but the job description's there, and it tells what they can and cannot do, which protects everybody.
Yep.
It keeps government from extending beyond legislation that'll hurt these people over here that care about these things, and these people, to benefit this side over here. And I think what happens is like we talked about earlier, these special interests and lobbyists and people that get a lot of money from certain groups, that's who they serve.
Yep.
And they'll take the oath, but they never intend on obeying that oath to that document that says you can't do these things
Yep.
to favor this group of people over here.
That's exactly it. I always tell people, go follow the money, go look at campaign finance reports, and you will see where the loyalties lie. And don't, they're not serving the people. They're serving who funds their campaigns.
But I'll tell you something. I've run for office before against somebody that shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
During 2020, incumbents generally would win during that time because you couldn't talk to anybody if you were new. But people will not go to the campaign finance
I know.
page.
Well, it's not easy to find.
No, they don't make it easy. And so the people remain ignorant because, like you said earlier, they're struggling.
Yeah.
They're worried about, okay, am I going to be able to pay property taxes and other things?
So, that's part of a more transparent government is making sure that it's easy to find information. And you have to, as a candidate, I had to have someone show me how to find my own campaign finance report. And that's ridiculous.
Yes.
That I couldn't easily access to see what was on the record for me, that it had been recorded correctly, that it had been put where it was supposed to be put. And so that's very concerning to me as well. But it is there. It's on the Secretary of State's website, but you got to jump through several pages to find what you're looking for, and it's not really that clear and plain. So if you haven't done it before, then you wouldn't, you might not be able to find it.
I think you just gave me a project. I'm starting to come around and want to get back into doing things. That's going to be one of my podcasts.
Okay.
I am going to have people go through that process so it doesn't seem so laborious, to get the information that they need.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, once you get to those campaign finance reports, it's I won't say the candidate, but I will say there was a on somebody's campaign finance report, there was a company that had donated, and it was a company not in this state. And so I went through everybody's campaign finance report, and I Googled all of these companies that were donating from out of state, and finding who the owners were and finding what they were associated with. And one of them came up, and it was, I won't say where it is. It was in another state, and it came back to nothing. You couldn't find the company.
Laundering.
The company didn't exist. But what was the most interesting, this was the most interesting, most telling, is that when you scroll down, when you Google something, then down below, it'll say people also search for. Mm-hmm. And the names that came up with that was Bill Gates, Bill Gates, Bill Gates. And I said, oh, I think we have our answer as to what this was.
I would say so. And that brings me to something else that I'm going to really try to push these podcasts because there's really only two people that even I put the plug out there. There's only 2 people that even came in here in my little studio to even talk about these things.
Yeah.
And it's you and Charlotte.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Haven't heard from anybody else.
Yeah.
But one thing I've noticed is that the candidate with the most signs means that they have the most money. If they have the most money, then where's that money coming from? And also, is it from out of state? And are we supposed to be allowing foreigners, which they are aliens? That's the way our documents are constructed. When they use the word alien in our Constitution, it means somebody from another state.
Right.
Because we're individual countries. And are we supposed to be doing that? Allowing foreigners, aliens from another state, to elect
Yep.
a candidate?
And I think every other candidate has out-of-state money on their campaign finance. Now, I also have out-of-state money on my campaign finance.
Oh, gosh, Stacy. No.
So I got $20.
I knew everybody did.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up.
Yes. Well, but some, they're much larger amounts on all these other ones, and so I always say, look, you're going to go look that up and you're going to see on mine, somebody's mom in California gave me $20. And my friend that lives right across the state line of Missouri bought a T-shirt so she could wear it when she came into Kansas. And then a longtime friend of mine that used to live in Kansas, his family still lives in Kansas, also gave me $20. And that is the extent of my out-of-state donations. And so I said, don't hang me for that.
I'm not going to hang you for that. I do think that it should be all from within the state.
Yeah.
Though I do believe that. I think buying a T-shirt from Missouri is not the same.
Not the same.
I don't consider that the same. I'm talking about corporate entities.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Corporate entities from
other states.
Other states is a problem because they've got a lot of money and assets. Individuals don't. They're usually friends or family.
That's right. They all have connections to Kansas. So yeah.
Unless you're George Soros, and
Yeah.
he's an individual.
Right.
But he doesn't do it that way. He just launders it through a nonprofit, and then all of a sudden the money shows up in Kansas,
Right.
supporting a certain candidate.
Yeah.
I'm sure we don't have any candidates in Kansas that are supported by laundered money from George Soros or Bill Gates.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, we won't go there.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I don't have a script, so
Yeah.
I'm just, things are popping into my brain here, and hopefully I'll get you really rattled, but you're really controlling it pretty well. I'm the one that's getting rattled.
I don't rattle easy. So.
Okay, we have a candidate, and that's good. We don't want emotional candidates or voters.
Yeah.
We have a candidate, and I'm not going to mention the name, but you can if you want. If you don't, I probably will mention it. No, I won't.
No.
Okay, we have a candidate that is endorsed by a U.S. president, which should never happen, by the way.
I agree.
Again, it should never happen.
Yeah.
And we've got a dictator basically helping to control elections in states, and that was never supposed to happen in a federal republic. But it's out of control now. So, okay, what do you think about that? You got a U.S. president supporting one of your opponents.
Yeah. Well, I never searched out that endorsement on purpose. And I knew that it doesn't matter because we're Kansas and we need to focus on Kansas and Kansans. And seeking out an endorsement of the president because we want to work the president's agenda, which has been publicly stated by this candidate, is not working for Kansans. Period.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so I don't think that that's necessary. And quite frankly, if you look at some of the social media comments regarding that, Kansans also agree.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of angry people out there.
Yeah. So that was not something, I was prepared that if for some reason he did want to have that conversation with me and chose me, I would have actually respected that simply because I would have known he did his homework and researched all the candidates. But that did not occur. And it's one of the reasons that I didn't reach out, because I wanted to see if the research would be done.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
here you go.
Yes.
Nothing else needs to be said on that.
Yeah.
I do think
he's a busy man. I will say that he's a busy man and doesn't have time to research candidates.
Let's just
he has a lot of other things to deal with that.
We'll just leave it at that, won't we?
Yeah.
People
shouldn't involve the state.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I do think it's going to injure a candidate's election, and it's really not what I would have done.
Yeah.
But it's not me, so hopefully it'll help you and maybe knock out a couple of people, or at least one.
Well, we've got a few days to find out.
Yeah. I'm being very bold and just out there. I hope that's okay.
That's okay.
You sure you want me to interview you?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. So what is the date of the primaries? Republican
August
primary?
4th.
August 4th.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of time left. So what are your plans over the next couple of months, really?
Yeah. Well, I've had to rearrange my schedule a little bit because there's been just a huge influx of invites to come to different forums or speaking events. Like I said, most of the counties are playing fair, and they want to make sure that I'm heard. And in fact, some in my own county, which is Sedgwick County, are having me.
Oh, good.
Just not our GOP.
Well, look, it's the GOP.
Yeah, but our Republican women are having me.
Oh, good.
At theirs, and lots of them throughout the state. So I've had to rearrange my schedule a little bit, but I will still finish all 105 counties, town by town, by the middle of July. So,
wow.
Yeah, which was actually, I'd planned on taking, I'd kind of planned it out if I needed to take all the way through almost to the day of the primary. But I'm very thankful because I'll have a couple weeks to, if I need to add something in there, shuffle things around a little bit, because it's been very important to me to make sure that I got to all 105 counties and that I did my level best to get to every town in this state. So by the time I'm done, I will have been in almost every single town in this state. I did have to skip some at the beginning in January when we had shorter days to get off the road when it got dark, but I'm hoping maybe I can go back and pick some of those back up that I missed in the beginning. But
days are longer.
And then I have people who I've already been to their county are now asking, can I come back? And I'm trying to see if I can get that into my schedule. So, and it'd be great if it was all in one county, but it's not. It's all over the state where they're saying, please come back to our county.
Yeah.
And
you look good. And how are you holding up?
I'm doing great.
Tough.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm out on the road. Out on the road and then answering emails and messages about 15, 16 hours a day. And I'm great. It's, a lot of people can't keep up with me. If I have somebody with me, they usually have to tap out and go take a nap or something. And I have a lot of energy. And, I think we need somebody with a lot of energy that can, keep up with all the things that are happening in the state. And some of the candidates I don't think have that stamina to do that. And that should be concerning when we're looking at who we want to run this state. So, because it's going to be a lot of long days and long hours, especially in the beginning, to try and figure out what the heck has been going on in this state and the things that are not seen that need to be revealed. Yeah. And I think that you have to have somebody that's got some energy to do that. So I've been doing great. I'm not tired. I feel fine. People ask me that all the time.
I know. Yeah, I can imagine.
Are you holding up? And I'm like, I'm great. If I get tired, I go home and take a nap and get back up and go again. So, yeah.
Are you still the youngest candidate?
I am.
And is it okay? I think I know the age because you've been here before, but you want to tell the people how old you are, or you want to lie about that?
No, I'm 52. So
52.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so my oldest son will be 34 this year, and a lot of that freaks a lot of people out, for lack of a better term. They're like, "How do you have a 34-year-old?" I said, "Well,
Some
I'm
people
52.
start early.
Yeah, and and I have a 22-year-old. So, and then I've got one in the middle there that's going to be 28 this week. So,
Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And I had one son get married
I
this
saw that
past
on-
year, and another one that just got engaged.
Wow.
And he it's so funny because they told me right before Mother's Day, and which was great. What a great Mother's Day gift. And they've been together for 5 years, a long time.
Gosh.
Okay. And so I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this. And then they said, yeah, we'll get married in 27. And I said, that's fantastic. I'm a little busy this year. And a few days later, they came back and said, yeah, so we're thinking about getting married in November. And I said, of 27? And they said, oh, no, this year.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, oh.
November.
November.
Wait a minute.
I know. I said, wow. Well, and they knew that they know that one of my businesses is doing weddings, and and I had already told them that I would help them. And I said, well, that's going to be, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be kind of tough. And I said, but I'll make it work. There's an election in there, but I'll figure it out. No big deal.
Election. I mean, wedding.
Busy people get it done, so it's fine. And thankfully, a couple days later, but I wasn't going to tell somebody what to do with their wedding. If they want to get married in November, I'm gonna make it work. So,
wow.
But thankfully, a couple days later, they came back and changed the date. So,
Oh, they did. See, it sounds to me like they were just pulling your leg.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
They just
Golly.
no. I totally left that up to them. But yeah, I was internally having a meltdown. But yeah.
Kids, I tell you.
I know. I thought, what's the rush? It's been 5 years,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden you got to get married in 6 months. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Something happened there.
I don't
something
know.
clicked finally after 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they weren't thinking straight.
I
and
guess they're
thinking
just-
about mom and running for
it's
office.
all good. It's all just fine. Yeah, so it's been a very, the last 2 years have been very eventful. Lots of great things have happened, and I sold a business, and so lots of changes. And so when people ask me how I'm holding up, one of the things that there's a test that you can do, and it is, psychologists use it to determine your level of stress. And it's what major life events have you had in the past year, and it's like, have you moved? Have you changed jobs? Have you, sold a business, started a new employment, have major life events happen. And, I can check all the boxes and say, yeah, all those things have happened in the past 2 years since I started my campaign, and I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah.
And so that also leads to, how does someone handle stress? How does someone handle, hurdles and problems? And I've said before, without really getting into all the details, I'm gonna have to write a book after this, because the number of things that have occurred during this campaign, a lot of other people would have dropped out, or they would have, crumbled, or they would not have been able to handle. And that's just, I'm an entrepreneurial business owner. I run, 20 hours a day anyway. So to me, that if you can't handle stress, then you need to probably not be in politics, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I think this has been an endurance test, and just to make sure that I'm ready for things.
I mean, when you look back on a person's life, and I'm not going to dig into your past life, and the hills that you've had to climb to get to this point in many ways. The fact that you survived all that is amazing, and you're now running for governor.
Yeah.
I mean, that says something.
Yeah, and I think part of that goes to when you know, like when you have a purpose, when you have a something that you're working on, there's a lot of things that can be set aside and mentally, like in your, you just don't focus on that. You focus on the task at hand. And so to be able to, what gets me out of bed every morning is when I get to spend time with people and hear what they're going through in this state. And every time I meet with someone and I hear of how they're struggling or the adversities they're facing or the problems they're facing, that gets me up and out of bed every single morning doing this again. And because I don't want to see people suffering. I don't want to see people facing the things that are completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, a lot of it has to do with what government has done.
Absolutely.
And I can name a few things that lead us right to the property tax problem.
Yep. Would you like to hear my plan?
Yes, I was segueing into that. And I was going to say, I've done the whole tax appeal process, the petition, and had a hearing in front of the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals. Of course, that all happened at a terrible time, and I went ahead and went through with that. But they give you like a 30-day period if you don't agree with what they said.
Right.
And then you go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's the final straw. Mm-hmm. Well, I let that drop because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
But since I quit temporarily, I would like to hear what you think should happen.
Well, just looking at the last legislative session alone, just this one, because we've got a couple that we could look at, but we got no property tax relief whatsoever, no real answers. And everything that I see proposed this session by the legislature that was voted on or heard was Band-Aids to symptoms.
Exactly.
Okay? It's not getting to the root cause of things. And the fact is, though, they can't address the root cause because of the holes they have dug at the state that are too deep to get out of. And some of those are the massive overuse of star bonds in the state. We have 17 active star bonds, 2 more on the way. The Chiefs deal brought that to the forefront for people to understand. A lot of people didn't even know what star bonds were prior to that. But that vote, that decision alone, because there really wasn't a vote, that decision alone.
That's what they do.
Has really brought it to the attention of people. And the fact is, I started doing my research. About 75% of our entire state's population lives within 5 miles of a star bond area. So it is by far the most overused and underperforming economic development tool we have. And if we had 1 or 2 in the state, maybe we could get them to perform at the levels they're supposed to. But when we take millions upon millions upon millions of dollars out of our local and state budgets every year, the consequence is higher taxes, higher property tax, because those budgets still have to be funded somehow. So that's one. When the state removed LAVTR from the budgets, that was a form of revenue to help the cities and counties lower property tax, and they removed it back in 2003. So it's been a while. But they removed it on the pretense of a budgetary issue that was going on with the state. Even when that resolved, supposedly, they refused to give it back. And it resulted in owing the cities and counties billions of dollars. Do you think billions of dollars might make a difference in our property tax? Yes, it would. And so then, if we were to restart LAVTR, it would drop Leavenworth, which is where my lieutenant is from. It would drop Leavenworth alone by 8 mills and would have a similar impact across the state. But they can't restart it because they've absorbed it into the budget. And then the third thing leads into the unfunded mandates, which is what LAVTR was supposed to take care of in order to help the counties back off of some of the property tax. So those increase every year. The costs increase every year. And that's an unfairly why the state, blames, oh, well, property tax has to do with your county. Well, the responsibility lies in the state and the things the state has done, putting more pressure on the counties to come up with funding while removing revenue. So we're on an unsustainable path at this point. Those things cannot easily be corrected. And I think we are fast approaching a time when disconnecting property from those local budgets is where we're at. And it solves a myriad of issues all at one time. Now, we still need to fund those local budgets somehow because people want things that the county provides. Okay? You want emergency services. You want those necessary things.
Yeah, the necessary things, yes, but the fluff, no.
Right.
And I see a lot of it.
But people want, you would miss it if you didn't have emergency services. Right. So those are things that have to be provided. So when you look at, well, how do we take care of the cities and the counties? There are a couple of legislators that have plans. One has not been brought forth yet, so I'm not going to go into it, but it is a long-term plan. It'll be presented this next legislative session, I believe. And it's been explained to me in full. And it's something that will take some time to get into place. It'll benefit more our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, some of our children will benefit from it, will benefit a little bit, but it is definitely a long-term but sustainable plan for the state. And it definitely needs to get put into effect and moving forward. But it actually doesn't utilize taxpayer dollars. It utilizes interest from recouping some dollars from a certain area that I can't talk about right now.
Okay.
And so I think that is a very sensible way to approach it because by the time it has reached its full capacity, it will have taken care of pretty much every tax in the state. So that's a very promising one that I want to see get into effect. Now, in the meantime, people don't have decades to wait for these things to come to fruition. So we're going to have some short-term stopgaps to take care of things while we're waiting for that to fully go into effect. And so there was a proposal made this year. The premise of it is great. The numbers were not quite there. It probably shouldn't have been proposed, but it is what I call a quasi-consumption tax. And the reason I call it that is it's not a straight across the board consumption tax, which, by the way, consumption tax in general is far more palatable these days than it was even a couple years ago when I started this, simply because of how out of control property tax has become. And you do have more control when it's a consumption tax because you are deciding what you consume. Mm-hmm. But it can have the effect of harming certain groups of people. So the proposal that was made was they called it a surcharge, but it would be per transaction capped. So it may not cover the entire transaction. It stopped at a certain dollar amount. And so if you purchased a car, for example, it would just add a few dollars to the price of the car. It wouldn't stop you from purchasing a car. Mm-hmm. And it also would not apply to things like food or utilities or medical, things that would adversely affect lower income or fixed income individuals. So that is definitely something that I can get behind. They just got to get the math right to mm-hmm. make sure that it's covering what it needs to cover. And the best thing about both of these plans is one of them would be a constitutional amendment. So a lot of protection for the cities and counties that way, because a lot of cities and counties are very gun shy because of the fact that LAVTR was removed as a revenue source for them and they don't trust the state, period. I've had conversations with almost every single city and county in this state mm-hmm. at this point. And they do not trust. And they are scared to death of the state paying for things for them. And I get that. But because LAVTR went through appropriations, it was not even a state statute, and it was not a constitutional amendment. So the long-term one would be a constitutional amendment. The short-term one would start as a state statute because they have to detangle some things out of the Constitution to get them paid for correctly, and then it would go to a constitutional amendment as well. So those are protections not only for the people, because once it's voted in, it has to be voted out by the people as well. It would also put that same protection in for the cities and counties. So the legislators, future legislators, could not come in and mess with that without asking the public for their approval. So, and that's really the way it needs to be. But it solves the problems of people feeling like they are punished for taking care of their property. Yeah. It takes care of, I've heard different people, and I've witnessed it myself across the state, where people on purpose junk their property to avoid paying more taxes.
And it still goes up, by the way.
Absolutely, it does. And it would take care of the unfunded mandates. It would take care of, it's actually an organic economic development tool, because if you are now in a state that doesn't have property tax, that will attract people to our state, which automatically attracts more business. So it's an organic economic development tool. It is not the entire answer to economic development, but it is a nice tool to have in your back pocket, And so it just solves a bunch of problems all at the same time, and it is not serving us well. You don't have a choice I suppose you have the choice of what size property you purchase or whatever, but eventually we have people in the state with paid off properties. They never feel like they own them. They don't, because they still have to pay. And so when you are able to, give real ownership to people of their property, that changes things a lot. They'll take better care of it. They will have a prettier Kansas. And so it really does solve a lot of problems all at the same time.
Yeah, it does. Now, one thing that politicians do overlook is that whenever you come up with a constitutional amendment, you got to look at everything before that constitutional amendment. Right at the very beginning of that document, when we were chartered, it says that the state of Kansas would possess the right to tax said lands. You can't get rid of a land tax. I do think it needs to be capped. So they can't just appraise it to oblivion, but our homes and fences and barns and sheds and any of that personal property has to come off of the books. It was never intended to be taxed in the first place, but ignorant or purposeful legislation in Article 11 over many decades since 1861 just obliterated that. First, they changed it from personal property in Article 11 to real estate.
Right.
And I'm going, change the name, then you can tax whatever you want. And I'm thinking, that's not how things are supposed to work. But tax me in different ways. We have to fund government, but you need to make some cuts. And I will fund that government, but do it a different way. Don't keep bloating my appraised value on my house. I built the darn thing. I remodeled it. I paid sales tax on all the lumber and stuff like that, and paid for the labor, and I'm renting it.
Right.
I'll pay. And don't do that.
That is there's a lot more discussion we can have on that. There's a lot more pieces to that, but it is something that has been obviously a pressing topic for a lot of people in this state, the vast majority. And it is also another one of those unifying topics. We'll get the argument of, well, I don't pay property tax because I rent. Yes, you do. You sure do. You pay it through your landlord.
Because the landlord has to pay a lot.
That's right. Now. And then the next argument is, well, that doesn't mean my landlord's going to reduce my rent if he doesn't pay property tax, which there are some out there that you're right, they would not do the right thing. But conversations have been had with lots of landlords who would say, oh my gosh, we could lower the rent
it's free
for people.
Market.
That's right.
If it's too expensive, don't rent from that person.
That's right.
Let them take the loss.
That's right. And so it would, I think that the vast majority of landlords would lower their rent because they don't have that high property tax on their property. And there are landlords that would take better care of their property that they're renting to others because they know they would not be taxed just for repainting or fixing a window. And, so there's some benefits across the board. Like I said, it fixes so many problems. It's, but they won't even talk about it. They won't address that.
Yeah.
This session was
Yeah.
disappointing to say the least. When property tax was supposed to be their number one thing, and it ended up not being anything.
Which now brings me to one question. I know you need to be someplace else pretty soon.
Pretty quick.
So.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have very valid concerns about energy projects in this state.
Okay.
So that is something that has become overwhelmingly prevalent in conversations. I started to say this back in January of this year, maybe even a little bit before, that we need a moratorium on those energy projects across the state. We have over 200 being proposed in this state right now between wind, solar, battery storage, and now data centers. And that doesn't even count the transmission lines or the nuclear projects being proposed. And so we did have legislation that gave 20-year tax abatement to data centers. And I've posted the list of senators that did that. I've not posted the list of representatives yet. I will. But some of those are now regretting their decision because they did not have the foresight to realize that this is what the consequence would be. And, my thought process is maybe next time you make a decision that you think through all the ramifications a little more carefully. And we did have several that voted no. And a lot of those I've had direct conversations with. They are people that read the bills and understand them a lot better. When we have legislators that read the bills, they vote more rationally a lot of the time. Not to throw any legislators under the bus, but some of them don't read it. And so we, they are regretting their decision. Some of the yes votes, a lot of people have asked if we can get that repealed. I do believe maybe there is a groundswell for that. Hopefully we can. And if that's possible, about 99% of these energy projects would disappear overnight.
Yay.
Yeah. And it is very troubling because we're talking about water. We're talking about land. We have had data centers in this state for a long time. They just look very, very different. They're in buildings, air cooled. They run their server rooms. They run our stuff. And there's no reason that, those are not the same thing as what's being proposed in this state right now. That's vastly different. By scale alone, just the big data centers. We don't want those. So they want us to be the holders of the property while they ship the majority of the power somewhere else, and we don't benefit from it, but we pay for the infrastructure. We pay for it in water, and we pay for it in land. And we should be very concerned over that. And I've been a big voice for that. We now have some senators and representatives calling for moratoriums in their districts as well. And I want to be very clear. The moratorium is not to tell someone what to do with their property. It is to stop predatory companies from taking advantage of landowners, cities, and counties. Because I've been in this, the first project I was ever brought into was over a year ago now. And it was Halstead Battery Storage Facility. And the citizens didn't want it. And the city wasn't listening to them. And they ultimately ended up defeating it, banning battery storage in their city, which is the right thing to do. They don't belong in cities next to houses near people. And, that was very eye-opening. They now have a new mayor and a couple new council members, and that was all done by a magnificent vote in last November. It was the showing of how a community can come together And by state statute, they use things that are in the state statute for people in communities to use to defeat when their elected officials are not doing the will of the people and working for them. And so that has been actually used multiple times throughout the state now. I often direct people back to that group because they're kind of the OG in this whole thing, really. But we've seen, wind and solar go away in some areas. We have a few that have gotten through, unfortunately, and we won't get them all out of here, but the vast majority, I think we can stop them. And I don't want to ever tell anyone what to do with their land, but I also don't want people being taken advantage of, and that's where I stand on that. These companies are not telling the truth. They refuse to allow third-party environmental studies, and I don't want their environmental studies that they said, oh, we've done it on data centers, it's fine. I want it on that piece of land and how it's going to affect that exact property, what the waste runoff is going to look like, what the water consumption is going to look like, what that land consumption is going to look like. And those things are being absolutely refused or only provided by the company. And and quite frankly, the moratorium needs to be there so that we can make sure that the energy being produced in this state benefits the people of this state.
Right.
Yeah. And the state is standing by silently and claiming home rule all of a sudden. They don't have any problem sticking their nose in home rule in other places, but they are saying, well, home rule, you guys have to figure it out. But we're talking about water, which is actually one of the only responsibilities of the state. And they should be overseeing and wondering why we're just willy-nilly having people say, there's a piece of land, let's put it there and use that water. That's very concerning to me.
Yeah. What the whole home rule thing, what people don't understand is that even elected officials, like our commissioners, mayors, county and city, they still take the oath to a written constitution. That is their state constitution. And the Constitution does not allow for them to just go willy-nilly and ignore the people and let a big corporation come in with eminent domain and run stuff through their land. They have to follow the same document that everybody else does. And I don't even think another piece of legislation should be necessary if they would just read the document and obey the darn thing. We have rights, and they just run right over the top of us.
And we do, I've said before that I would do a moratorium, which is true. I can. It's a very limited one that the governor has the ability to do. It does have to have legislative approval to do a statewide moratorium, but I do believe we have people that want to see that happen for the purpose, and a moratorium is for the purpose of researching and making sure things are done correctly, which there should be an energy plan for this state, but it needs to be within the right perimeters of where it's going to be the most beneficial and how it's going to benefit and not harm the people of this state. So I love our state, and we do have several candidates who are supporting either the tax breaks that they've already approved, or saying that we have some candidates that aren't currently in office saying that we should not put a moratorium on private companies. And my rebuttal to that is, if they're predatory, we absolutely should. If they're harming our people, we should be a lot more concerned about what they're doing and holding them accountable to being transparent and honest.
If they're not doing it to serve Kansans,
that's right.
If they're going to ship power, energy somewhere else and then gouge us for what we use here if they allow us to use it here, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, no, we'll get to pay for the infrastructure, even though they say they're not going to do that. They'll just find another way. It's been proven across the country in other locations. Energy costs have skyrocketed where they have data centers. So,
can I ask you one last question? I know it's really close here. Maybe you can tighten it up a little bit here. Does Kansas need to clean house with some type of a DOGE thing to lower the budget of cost of government.
I don't like the term Doge, but there's going to be a thorough audit, and I already have that team ready, the base team ready to go of what that's going to look like. And we are prepared to go department by department and figure out what has been happening in this state, what has been mishandled, misappropriated, out and out fraud. We know there's fraud, even though the state currently will not admit that. In unemployment alone, we know there was fraud that occurred, and they won't admit it. And so there will be things that are investigated to make sure that we aren't losing money somewhere that we shouldn't be, and that taxpayer dollars are appropriately being used and not funding things that don't need to be funded. So it's a process, and it's going to be a big process. And you can't just take one little piece of it and address that, because everything's connected. So it's going to have to be an across the board approach all at the same time, looking at all the departments and making sure that we don't harm in the process of cleaning things up. And, that's going to be the challenge, but I'm up for it. And I've got some great people that really love this state as well. I've been very careful about who I keep in my circle in that respect, because I want people that are truly going to work on the things that are right, and not have these other voices back here telling them the things that they should be doing. So that's super important to me. So
that is good to hear. I appreciate that very much. A lot of people will appreciate that. Well, we better wrap it up so you can make your next stop. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Verity Seeker, and this is Stacy Rogers for Kansas Governor. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was great. Great.
All right, goodbye.